Another tool that's super handy to have is a little mini spring clamp. Sometimes you have something that you just can't quite hold it long enough, or some masking tape isn't going to stick it in place or hold it in place. These are available on Amazon, or I think Home Depot has them. I've seen them even at Ralph's in the little home aisle. Really handy to have a couple of these little spring clamps. A clothespin will work in a pinch, or sometimes I've used binder clips for thick pieces of paper. Those work as well. But sometimes you just need an extra set of hands to hold something in place. So that's a really handy tool to have. So I'll just leave that clamped until the hot glue fully dries. And then I'm going to work my way around in more of a horizontal direction. So I'm going to look for parts of this that don't have very much of a compound curve. Again, compound curve meaning one that curves this direction and this direction at the same time. Those are tricky to form a flat strip of illustration board around. So I'll start maybe down here where this is pretty vertical at that point, at least on the back side. Notice that over here, it's a little bit more angled. So I'm gonna hold off on doing the front part of that. Maybe I'll just start with the back part. So I could just do a strip that goes around like this, from there to there. And that's gonna be a pretty easy one to do. So I can just take this and then make a mark, and then cut it off with my scissors. And then I'll just glue it here. Ouch. Hot glue is very hot. Be careful you're not squeezing it or oozing it out onto your own fingers. Always be aware of that. Again, having this little spring clamp, you can see how quickly that was springing off. This little clamp is really handy. I can just hold that right in place while I work my way around. I'm going to pull that as tight as I can around my form. Put my little clamp on until the glue dries. A good trick with hot glue strings that a student taught me years ago is to use a blow dryer. If you just wave a blow dryer over your piece, not enough where it melts the hot glue that's structural, it will melt all those little strings out of your way. It's kind of nice technique. All right, so now I'll just continue filling in everything that I can with these strips. So again, I'm going to work my way around where I have straight sections. And then again, if I have a little gap, I can go back and cut out a little bit of a wedge. It's hard to get your scissors in there sometimes if you're doing that after the fact. And again, I used kind of an excessive amount of hot glue, but it'll be okay. And because that's the base, I just want to make sure that it's still sitting flat. Okay, so that's pretty much all of the horizontal-ish parts of this. So now I'm going to have to start filling in maybe at some slight angles. So like these strips are going to need to kind of go across like this. And I can't really get that to lie horizontally across the form. So I'm just going to start filling in now kind of any of the gaps and see what this looks like. again, using masking tape or a clip to hold the ends in place will speed up the process for you. You will burn yourself with a hot glue at least once, I guarantee you. Or at least startle yourself. Even if you don't get a full burn, just touching the hot glue with your finger is pretty startling. Let's see, I've got this little tiny piece. I don't know if there's anywhere that's worth trying to use that. I guess I could probably squeeze it in here. I'm not going to be too worried about filling in every single gap of this. Probably going to have some open spaces, and that's okay. Up here, I've got a concave space that I was trying to play it in, where I cut this concave. So let's try to define that little area. I'm going to sneak the end of that underneath to help hold it in place. So with this one, I do want to make sure to glue all the way along that piece of cardboard in there so that it follows the concave curvature. I'm going to take a little longer to make sure to hold that in place and really press it in until the glue has fully dried. And it takes a little bit longer because of the tension of the piece of cardboard having to be pressed in. Not wanting to stay in place, so I'm just gonna, because this is the one spot where I want it to be concave, I'm gonna really take my time and let that fully dry. Okay, I'm really struggling to get that one spot to glue in place, which is not surprising, but it's always a little frustrating when things don't do what you expect them to. So be patient with yourselves. Sometimes it takes a minute to get to where you're trying to go. So this is just the one spot, like I said, where I'm gonna really try to follow that form as much as I can. Okay, so I got frustrated enough, or impatient enough, I should say, with that spot that I just grabbed a clamp. And so if you happen to have a clamp like this, it's definitely handy sometimes, because it just, again, like the little spring clamps, it means that you don't have to sit there and hold it in your hand. You can let this dry as long as it needs to, and you can walk away from it for a minute and take a break. So again, I don't expect that everyone has a bar clamp of some kind at home. So if you can find some way of duct taping or masking tape, taping this in place, that's definitely handy. But if you have a clamp like this, you can get these. I found a set of these actually at the Dollar Tree. These ones are nice ones from Home Depot. Okay, so just having that clamp on there just allowed me to catch my breath and not have to sit there and hold that for it to dry. Now you can see when I come around on this side, I've got a bit of a gap where this strip kind of is going straight, and maybe I want it to be slightly curved. So again, I can pinch that in, but I could also do what I was doing before and cut a little notch. I think up here where it goes around the corner, it might just look better if I was able to pinch that in a little bit. So I won't even glue that yet, I'll wait till later, but that just allows it a little more flexibility. So I'll continue around here. Maybe just so I don't have too much layering going on, I'll go ahead and trim this one off. here. I'm gonna do it at a slight angle right there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this top portion where I have the concave on this one side, and it'll be good for the sake of the demo. You can choose to go inside or outside on your overlaps. Just playing around with what angle kind of works, so I don't have to use too many pieces to complete it. I don't have too much overlap. You just want to make an aesthetic decision at the end with how to finish it off. Do you like having some of the ends cut at a diagonal? Do you like leaving some small gaps? Do you want everything really well fully filled in? It's your sculpture, so ultimately you want to make a decision on the aesthetics of the finished piece. So I'm not going to be super concerned myself with filling in every single gap. I'm just trying to represent the idea of this organic shape with strips of cardboard. I'm going to try to make it as clean as possible so I don't have hot glue oozing out all over the place. But if I have little gaps here or there, I'm not too concerned. Ouch. And as I said, be careful with the hot glue. It'll ooze out and catch you unawares. Maybe I'll just trim off this tip. So you can see the top portion of this is pretty well filled in. I just have some small gaps here or there. I'm going to go back over this with a blow dryer and get rid of all the strings of hot glue. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the top part. I would continue this all the way down to the bottom and fill in the entire form to a similar level as this is filled in. I'll just demonstrate another aesthetic of how you might choose to finish your piece off. Instead of just leaving all of these strips with slight gaps, you could also choose to add more of an organic texture. One nice kind of organic texture that's easy to use with corrugated cardboard is exposing the actual corrugation itself as kind of this almost like bark-like texture. I could just tear this. So all I've done with this is I took a piece of corrugated cardboard and I tore off the outer surface of it to expose the corrugation. If you remember way back at the beginning, I talked about there's different sizes of corrugation. This is a pretty coarse one, so it's pretty wide spacing. The piece that I originally used for this is much narrower corrugation. I could use that as well. But I could even just tear this into sort of random organic pieces and glue it on my understructure. Once I have a few of these strips completed, I could just kind of fill in And again, be careful with the hot glue. I could also do this with Elmer's glue in more sort of a paper mache type surface. And you can really smush this and manipulate it and make it feel more organic and less angled. And you can fill in the whole surface just kind of doing that. And you can see how that kind of more haphazard, randomized organic surface in some ways matches the organic feel of this assignment. So there you have two different aesthetics you could go with for your final piece. More kind of random textured organic feel. You can see the sort of the difference where I used a larger piece versus smaller tiled pieces. I could kind of randomize this whole thing versus if I want to do more strips of the chipboard and try to fill it in a little bit more carefully like that. Either way, you make an aesthetic choice for yourself, what you want it to look like. So there are two examples. Again, I mentioned using different types of materials. So if you want to do white strips or white illustration board, that will look different. It'll be like a clean, bright look. I could even go with paper mache and use something like butcher's paper. And again, I would probably want to fill in a little bit more. I could even take masking tape. So if I did the back side of this, I could take masking tape and fill in a lot more of this surface with some tape and cover the whole thing with a layer of masking tape first. And then if you've ever done paper mache, you just take Elmer's glue and mix it with a little bit of water to thin it down. And then I could do the same sort of thing as I did with this, but using butcher paper. I could tear the butcher paper and glue that down on the surface with Elmer's glue or white glue and create a nice surface that way. And there are lots of YouTube videos on paper mache process. I don't have a setup for doing that right now for this demonstration. So your finished object could have different aesthetics. It could have strips of chipboard like this, filling the entire form. It could have more of an organic textured surface, or you could do paper mache and cover the whole thing with brown paper bag or butcher paper, or even white paper, honestly, would work as well for the paper mache. So that's up to you.